Briahna Joy Gray hosted a writer named Jed Shugerman on her Bad Faith podcast. And Jed had written an article back in September called Biden's Student Debt Plan is a Legal Mess. And in it, he made the argument that Joe Biden was using the COVID emergency as justification for his executive order relieving student debt, as opposed to invoking the Higher Education Act of 1965, which would have been a much more legally sort of foolproof argument to make. And now, obviously, with a Texas judge having just blocked student debt relief and applications are now frozen, there is widespread speculation that perhaps this was another Democrat boondoggle meant to drive youth turnout. And then the week after, we can't actually get you student debt relief. Right?
We tried.
So the theory is that Biden used a faulty justification for this executive order on purpose, thinking it would be struck down and that the banks would get off the hook. Meanwhile, the votes are already counted, so nothing you could do about it, right? Be angry. We'll win you back over in 2 years somehow. There will be some scary thing that you're going to have to vote for us anyway, so fuck you, right? That's that. Briahna Joy Gray
we'll send out our
page.
army of flying monkeys on social media to call you a right-wing, horrible person if you don't vote for us, and you'll lose all your friends and possibly get fired if you speak against us in the heat of the election.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So Briahna Joy Gray is one of these people who's on this page. And so she had Jed on to talk about this. And here's how that conversation went. We have a brief clip.
The Biden administration could lose this 9-0. And instead of running against the Roberts court.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Right there. He's saying the Biden administration could lose this 9-0, meaning in the Supreme Court.
9-0.
Even the liberals can be like, no, this is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So there you have it.
Thinking it's a win, I think it'll be an embarrassment that actually frustrates, that alienates the base because it says you were incompetent. And that's my real concern here is I have to be, this experience of finding this problem has made me a little more cynical about what the goals are here.
I love that ear-to-ear smile just slowly forms on her face as he's saying that.
About
Look at her.
What the goals are here. Is that
welcome to the club?
Yes. I mean, I wish I could say that I wasn't pessimistic when I wrote this piece because the subtitle was optimistic. There's time to fix it. There is time to fix it. But I guess if there's anyone out there who's working in the Department of Education and you left your job somewhere, you left your job in some other education department in some state, or you left a job in the private sector because you wanted to get things done, but you weren't so worried about getting a couple more purple state Democrats into some districts in 2022. If you want to listen to how to actually get student debt relief done, take 1 more year, get it done through the Higher Education Act, and you have a shot at it winning.
To be clear, the Higher Education Act would allow the full scope of the $10,000 to $20,000 and for everybody under 125, like the plan that Biden set out now.
I mean, honestly, there's nothing in it that requires means testing.
Or more. Obviously I want the whole shebang. So that's another reason to want to pursue that route for those of us who are still holding out for full debt cancellation.
That's right. Briahna, I've got a lot of progressives wrote to me privately or said there were a lot of progressives who were mad that I was saying this. Like I had some secret that, wait, you think that there isn't a conservative lawyer who already saw all this, but they don't want to write it in the Atlantic because they're holding on to it. The conservatives are probably mad that I'm suggesting the Higher Education Act, but progressives said thank you.
All right, so there you have it. Now, what's interesting about that conversation is Jed says you might have a shot at passing it under the Higher Education Act, which implies that even that might not be a sure thing.
I think because the court is weighted so heavily conservative, I think that's how he's thinking. At this point, I've read his article. And if you look at the outcome, he got a lot of pushback on that article, as he indicates in the interview. But the proof is in the pudding. You have to listen to the person whose predictions wind up matching up with reality, right? A court just stopped this. And now, having read the article, yeah, he makes a good case, because under this act, which was passed in response to 9/11, it grants the executive the authority to cancel debt on the basis of people having been affected by a national emergency. Now, that is very specific. And up to this point, when other emergency measures related to COVID have gone to the Supreme Court, they have been very skeptical of that argument. They struck down the eviction moratorium, and they struck down the mask and vaccine mandates, arguing that you could not do this under the premise of a national emergency. So if they did not accept the premise of an eviction moratorium, if they didn't accept the premise of a vaccine mandate, if this goes to the Supreme Court, which it inevitably seems like it will, they're going to accept the premise that you can do blanket student debt relief because of how people have been affected by COVID. And he says in the article, the only way you could maybe get that through would be if you so severely means tested it that it was specifically targeted at people who could demonstrate that they lost money because of COVID specifically. A lot of people came out ahead on COVID. Those people would also be getting student debt relief. So if you're doing it on this basis, that's a very weak legal grounding. And I have to say, very often with Democrats, at best, people who are in the, Democrat bubble, at best, they will accuse them of stupidity and incompetence. You're barking up the wrong fucking tree, man. This is exactly what they wanted. At this point, looking at all of the legal arguments, they're not that stupid. They're not that stupid. People working at that level of the legal game, they're working in the Office of Legal Counsel for the White House, didn't see that coming. Come on, man. That's fucking bullshit. They chose to do it this way so that it would not pass. There is no other explanation for why you would pick a route that is so dicey. And really, when you look at how the Supreme Court has ruled thus far on pandemic relief measures, pretty much bound not to get through that court. Pretty much bound to. So why would you not go with the more solid legal argument? So at this point, yes, I agree with that. I believe it was a setup to juice turnout for the midterms. They knew this wasn't going to go through court, and then they can blame it on conservative judges.
Right. Yeah. So this is a screenshot of a Briahna Joy Gray tweet from someone who calls themselves Don Moynihan. All right. Let's see. Professor, McCourt School, Georgetown. Oh, a Georgetown University professor. He thinks he's owning her here by pulling up another screenshot of Briahna saying that Biden has the authority to cancel student debt via executive order, but wasn't doing it, right? And so he thinks it's a big own. He says, then Biden clearly has the power to cancel all student debt. Why isn't he doing it? Now, Biden pretending to cancel student debt when he clearly doesn't have the power to do so is the ultimate act of political deception. Now, this is another liar. If he is a professor at Georgetown University,
is it when you see that, it's like, is he really that fucking stupid? He's a law professor. Right. He doesn't understand that there's an alternate route. Come on.
Yeah. And so Briahna here is too nice to him.
Was he trying to get a fucking job at the Democratic establishment?
Right, exactly. She says, when you literally don't know what the fuck you're talking about, I'm honestly just embarrassed for you. No, Briahna, I think you're being too nice there. You were perceptive enough to know that Biden was lying about this from day one. You ought to be perceptive enough to know that this guy is a lying little shitbag as well. Because if he's a professor, I mean, he obviously knows that this argument, that these two tweets posted next to each other do not constitute an own. Because the problem is not that Biden doesn't have the power to do this. It's that he has to do this in a way that is legally sound that will hold up in court, which he could have done, but chose not to do. Then the question at that point becomes, why did he choose not to do it? Why did he choose the legally shaky path over the more legally sound path, right? And by the way, what all of this should tell people is that the obvious solution here is just to postpone all student debt repayment indefinitely. Right. Because nobody has challenged Biden's authority to do that, right? Right now, that moratorium expires December 31st, 2022. So about 6 weeks from now. Nobody has said you can't do that.
Go full second foundation, man. Put it 10,000 years into the future.
Boom. That's it. Problem solved. Problem solved. No one can challenge you on that because no one has challenged Biden on this. No one's saying, oh, you can't extend. No, he can. He's the president. He has the authority to do that. If he didn't, surely they would have intervened to try and stop him. They obviously have a hard on for this issue. So why wouldn't they have intervened? Right? So that's what you do. You say all student debt is due in 1,000 years.
Right. And then you could still try to get it cleared under the Education Act, but it won't matter if it passes or not.
Right, because in the meantime, everybody's covered. Everybody's covered. But that's the thing. Everybody is covered on all student debt, all federal student debt. And they don't want that. They want to skim $10,000, $20,000 if you're on a Pell Grant and get payments coming back in, right? They want the money back. Mm-hmm. So they can't do what we said is the obvious sensible thing to do. If you were concerned about people being crushed by student debt, yes, that's the obvious move. Their concern is, how do we gin up a youth vote before a midterm, and how, on the other hand, do we guarantee the banks their money, right? That's the balancing act they had to do. Right. And it looks like that balancing act is not going to be much of a balancing act. Turns out the student debt relief may have just been a big jerk-off move.
It was a big jerk-off.
And now the banks are going to get paid. They got their senators, and the working people get nothing.
Look, this was another prediction that I did make, but even I did not realize how fucking foul these people were going to be. They always... I said they were going to cancel student debt before the midterms, that they were saving it for that. But I never suspected
that it wouldn't be student debt relief.
That I didn't see coming, man. That they were going to use a way that was bound not to pass legal muster and then blame it on the courts. That's why I'm saying you can't call these people stupid. They're not stupid. If you think they're stupid, you're misunderstanding your enemy. They're very fucking smart.
Yeah, they pulled some bullshit with the eviction moratorium also. They deferred to the CDC. They told the CDC they should extend it. Right? Rather than pass a law extending it when they had the House and the Senate. Right? They said, well, we really encourage the CDC to use their brains here and extend this, right? They basically deferred to an apolitical agency to do politics for them, because for them to have to do politics is this sort of irreconcilable conflict between doing what's right for people and keeping the money coming in for the financial interests that not only fund them, but that prop up the entire system, right? I mean, it's not as simple as they give Nancy Pelosi money so she does them favors. Yes, that's part of it, but it's also way bigger than that, right? It's way bigger than that. And this is the problem, going back to our first segment, that Democrats and Republicans are both going to have to deal with in some way if they want to win. All right. Let's go to our buddy Colin from the Indie News Network. Hey, Colin, thank you for the $5, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate that very much. We'll have to hit you back on your show. I can't stand how libs are saying we should blame the judges and not the Dems. That's like you setting off the bomb and blaming the dynamite. Yeah, I mean, look, we knew there were conservative judges, right? That's not a new thing, especially in Texas, right? What was the conservative judge in Texas? He struck down the ACA, and then that lost at the court, at the high court, right? But yeah, of course they're out there. And look, they knew that these lawsuits were coming. They knew these lawsuits were coming because this is about banks getting money versus not getting money, right? This is not about a deadline being extended. Everybody trusts Joe Biden's going to figure out a way to get the banks paid, right? I mean, Joe Biden is nothing if not reliable for that. Okay. Yep. But he's stiffing him out of $10,000 from these bastards who they want it. They want it. And so there were going to be legal challenges to this, obviously, right? Executive orders, by definition, are vulnerable to legal challenge because they are a workaround to the way things generally are supposed to go. So you're going to be challenged on that. And you have obviously a responsibility to set it up in a way that defends you against these legal challenges. That's why you have the staff, right? And so the only reasonable explanation, I agree with Russell and I agree with Briahna Joy Gray, is that they wanted this to fail.
They didn't want it to pass. Yep.
Yeah.
They gave their donors in the loan business a nice foot rub, and they juiced turnout for the midterms.
And at this point, what are we going to say? Oh, they're going to pay for this. No, realistically, they probably
No,
won't.
they're not. They're not. They're gonna tell their fucking brain dead idiot moron base, oh, that's why you need to vote for more Democrats. You know, it's like a drug dealer who tells you, just shoot more heroin and you're gonna be better.
Please clap.